Hello, welcome to another episode of the Warm Up Podcast. Today I am here with Hannah Tizedes, and we are going to be talking about her organization called the Trashy Collection. She's the founder. She is an artist, an advocate for the planet, a self-proclaimed trash collector, and more. So Hannah, I just want to pass it off to you first to introduce yourself and say hello before we kind of dive into everything.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bree. You hit it right on the head. Self-proclaimed trash collector. That's
Love
always
it.
my number one. So yeah, I make art with trash, and that's kind of my thing. I just go and mostly pick up trash from the Great Lakes. I live in Michigan, so I just love the Great Lakes. I grew up around them, and seeing the trash, build up year after year is really crazy and sad, but also figured I could find a way to hopefully inspire other people to just make a difference wherever you are in the world, because you don't just have to be by an ocean. You don't, have to be anywhere specific to make that difference.
Yes.
So that is kind of how the Trashy Collection started, and it's kind of just snowballed from there. And there's been tons of fun opportunities to do things with brands and just make that difference kind of more a global impact than just this local impact.
I love it so much. Yeah, you came across our radar just from your art itself. And I was like, yes, I have to talk to her. I want to know just, like what inspired you. And obviously, it aligns so well with our mission and what we do, but then bringing in this creative aspect too, which is just like that next step of turning something that's gross and ugly and it's so unappealing for people to litter into something really beautiful and something really unique, and it makes you think. So I love what you're doing, and I'm so excited to be able to share that with everybody that's listening. But I want to take a way step back and just ask you your first experience, kind of maybe your most memorable experiences in the outdoors, or what got you into nature when you were growing up.
Yeah, definitely. So my parents have always been, camping and doing things like that. There was four of us when I was little, so I was one of four, and we were always, packing up the van to go on a next adventure. And that's kind of where it all got started. And I have this vivid memory of being younger, probably around like 10 years old, and we went out to maybe Florida or somewhere, and we were on a beach pier, and I just remember this little pink balloon floating by in the water. And I grabbed my mom's little, not even digital camera at that time, like film camera, and took a picture of the little balloon. And I still have it to this day. And it's this pink little floating balloon out in the waves. And that's my, first memory of really being like, wow, trash is out there, not just on land, but out in the ocean too.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's such a vivid memory too, and I feel like it's very special because I don't know that a ton of young kids would really maybe pay attention to that or realize the significance or the impact of that at such a young age. Like I know for me, I didn't start to pay attention to things like that until a lot older, as I started to kind of learn more about environmental impact and the crises and stuff. And I would see litter everywhere, but I was just so frustrated with it, but I didn't really do anything about it until later in life. If I saw it as a kid, I was like, oh, that's gross, but I wouldn't think to be like, that's my responsibility, to do something about it. So being so young and having that, I don't know, just that innate sense to be like, I'm gonna take a picture of that because I need to remember that this doesn't belong there. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
perspective
And
to
I
have.
think totally. And I think honestly a lot of it was maybe less of the, I have to save the world kind of mentality, but more of like, oh my gosh, there's a pink object. It
Yeah.
doesn't belong here and I love pink or whatever at the time. But I know my mom has told me when I was little, I would just collect everything all the time. Like we would go into craft stores, those fake flowers, how they fall off all the time on the ground. She would be like, you just stuff your pockets with them. And I'd have to tell the cashier, like, she's not stealing. They were on the ground. It's garbage. So I think I've just been always amused with just things that, kind of shouldn't be where they be, or that I can
Yeah,
take home with me out of nature or wherever it may be. So
I love that. Yeah, every person that I talk to on here, I just love asking them kind of their, I don't know, their origin story with nature and how they become so passionate about advocating and stuff, because everybody has such a different, I don't know, path to this. But it's so intriguing to me when you're young and you're doing that, because I feel like I mean, speaking from experience, like it's just something that's like as I've gotten older and I am driven to educate myself, that it becomes a thing that I'm like, okay, I need to pay more attention. This is like a thing that I need to do. But as a kid, I wouldn't have had that like depth. Um, and I'm curious too of like, obviously you're an artist and so you're creating things like how old were you when you started to create art? And was it originally with litter or did that come later?
Um, I guess now just thinking about it, I haven't thought about that in a while, but I've always had that knack for, if you look at a lot of my art pieces, they're usually this mosaic format and a lot of color gradations and things like that. And I've been doing that for so long because I have been collecting, these little fake flowers and kind of putting them in this beautiful arrangement just on the floor of my bedroom when I was little or outside, with petals from the garden kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess that's, yeah, kind of where it all started. Or even I had like a Care Bear collection when I was younger of hundreds of little plush Care Bears, and I would organize them in color order and things like
Amazing.
that. And take pictures of them. I have them like pictures, from up in my bunk bed, taking it down on
Love
the
that.
bedroom floor. So I guess, yeah, like thinking about it now, it's been, a journey to the plastic and everything from insects up until collecting trash from the beaches, which really stemmed because my parents live near Lake Erie in Michigan,
Okay.
and I just couldn't stop finding trash. It was like one of
Mhm.
those, you start to notice little by little, and then you find a whole pile of it somewhere, and it just started snowballing. And I've been collecting it now for quite a few years, I guess, and my collection
Yeah.
just keeps growing.
Yeah, it's a never-ending issue, and I think
Yeah.
that so many people are like, "Oh, it's just like litter, it can't be that bad," and it's like, no, like, I'm sure you're finding, microplastics and pieces of plastic that have been on that beach for years and years and years and years, and it's, like, slowly breaking down into even smaller particles of plastic that's not going anywhere.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
smaller, and then, then wildlife can get impacted, and it goes into our drinking water, and it's just such a crazy everything is connected. And I think that the art that you're making also reminds us of that, of like, hey, this has been like, I'm finding these pieces have been here for who knows how long. And who knows where they would have ended up if I hadn't picked them up and made something and created something out of it too. Um, and I think,
Yeah.
like, from what you had just mentioned too, I would love to know, like, when you were even going through school, was it because you mentioned even bugs and like making collections out of things like that? Were you very into like science and stuff growing up as well, or did it mainly like were you intrigued by just like the nature aspect and then creating art with any kind of nature? It didn't matter what it was necessarily.
Yeah, I would say it was more of the nature aspect, just
Mm,
because I think when you're little, you have that just imagination and so much more of that within you. Like I remember when I was little, my mom would tell me that fairies lived inside the tulips by the side of our house. So I was
love
just always obsessed with nature. And we were always taking family trips to, different national parks and things like that. And yeah, I guess that's where it began. It wasn't so much of the science. I mean, I remember watching like Bill Nye the Science Guy when I was younger, but
that.
yeah, I didn't really know that you could make a career from any of it. I think you think there's only a couple things you can be as a kid, but when you
Mhm.
get older, you realize there's so much more you can do outside of those, four things you're told you can do as a kid. So, and my parents
Yeah.
were always like, do whatever you want. So then I was like, okay, I'll just make art. And obviously, that wasn't the clear cut path for me. I had a
Right.
lot more along the way, but it's amazing to make that 360 right back to what you were doing when you were little.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about that journey then. Like what has your journey looked like up until now where you're creating something that like truly kind of merges all of your passions from when you were a kid?
Yeah, you just said it. It really does, and it's crazy looking at that full 360.
Mhm.
So, let's see, where did it all begin? I guess I ended up going away to university, not far. I stayed in Michigan to Michigan State University, and I started studying art actually. So that was my major for like the first couple years, and then I wasn't really sure like what that was going to look like for me. Like, do I become an art teacher? What is the path? And because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, I actually ended up switching it because I was like, okay, I know I want to make an impact. How do I start blending some things together to kind of make my own path? So I ended up doing creative advertising. And then I
Okay.
blended that with sustainability studies. And my hope was to help companies that were doing good for the planet, like advertise their efforts better.
Oh,
Because when you're sitting in these advertising classes, you're always talked about Coca-Cola and McDonald's. And I was like, I don't want those people to be my clients. I want to make this whole new space where we're actually pushing brands that, give a shit about the planet.
yeah.
So that was kind of, where it all started coming together. And with the creative advertising part, it also had, this kind of artsy feel to it still. And that was, my first little journey, which led into an internship out at an art gallery in Arizona. And that's actually where I found out about you guys.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was trying to, yeah, I was trying to find local trash cleanups or anything like that, just because that was, my sustainability studies really had that component of it as
Yeah.
well. And the art gallery was working with some really cool people that were making these Burning Man structures with recycled materials and doing all these really fun art projects like that. So it was a
Yeah.
super cool experience. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the core part of the journey, I'd say. And then it just kind of snowballed into this making art, sharing it on Instagram when Instagram, like, was more of just this picture place. And I
Yes.
would take a picture of my trash with this beautiful scenery in the background and be like, what the heck are we doing, guys? Like, how is this fork
Yeah.
ending up in, the middle of nowhere, Utah? And
So true.
um, yeah, and then I just started learning more about the plastic here in the Great Lakes. There's over 22 million pounds ending up in the lakes here every year, and I just still can't wrap my head around that because we're not even the ocean. So thinking about how small the lakes are compared to the pollution out there is just crazy to me. And yeah, I mean, I think that's most of the journey. So
That's incredible, though. I mean, in your sustainability classes, as you were starting to merge those together, did it change or open your eyes to anything along, like, I guess, in kind of like the art sphere of like, I don't know, like different kinds of mediums or different kinds of, I don't know, ways to seek out how to use more sustainable materials even in your art and stuff? Because I know that a lot of the things that you use are recycled or from, like they're trash, but I'm sure that there are other aspects of it that maybe go into it that you need to be more aware of, like where these products are coming from or like how they're utilizing like even pigmentation and like colors and stuff.
yeah, totally. And I just realized I left out like the biggest part of this all, which really loops everything in,
Oh,
is that when I was at Michigan State University during all my studies, I was also working at the local recycling facility there on
okay.
campus. And that was like, I mean, that really was like the game changer of everything, I think. Just seeing all of that trash come in on a daily basis. And I was the environmental communications coordinator. So I was kind of the person that was communicating all of our efforts and, zero waste efforts, recycling efforts, compost, all of that to the students on campus. So over 50,000 students, trying to get the message across to like, please recycle this, please compost this. Like, we have
Yeah.
the resources, let's do it. And then still seeing the lack of education there of people, recycling diapers and doing things like that, where you're like, whoa, like the system is so broken. And there's also so much coming through that you can utilize in different ways, like, and make art with it, or try to make this more punch that people can actually
Upcycle
see
it,
something
give
and
this
be like,
second life.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much like room to give second lives, and they did that really well there. The recycling facility also had like a store attached to it called a surplus store, so everything that could be used again was in the store for sale for like a really discounted price. It was super awesome. But yeah, I mean, that was like a life changing job for, a few years just to have that experience in a recycling facility and see all of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I feel like that would be eye-opening for anyone, even me. And I feel like, I'm dipping my toes into learning things, but I feel like any time that you're just seeing it every day in person, like up front and like the volume and the impact of it all, it changes everything. And the more tangible, the more visual, it's just like, wow, this is truly a huge initiative and also something that people need to be utilizing even more than we are. And I'm curious too of if you have any insight into like how you got people to pay attention on campus or like to get more involved, because I feel like even with, our mission and stuff, it's like we want everyone to be aware of the issue of littering, and that while you may not be littering, like you can still be the person that takes charge and like creates change to be the person to pick it up and like remove it from these places. Um, and I'm curious of like how active or I guess like driven kids on campus were. Like what kind of messaging really struck people?
Yeah, it was interesting because you obviously, just like the whole world, if you take the whole world and you're trying to send everyone a message, it obviously doesn't get through to everybody.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of students that would, be interested in getting more involved in cleanups and things on campus. But then you, of course, have people that don't understand where the litter comes from. I think a lot of people can't wrap their head around, like, well, how is it ending up there? We don't, like,
Mhm.
I'm not throwing things on the ground. And it's that you have to really start at that like base level of where are these things coming from. So I actually had started this initiative while I was there where we would go and dump out a trash can and I would organize all of the trash,
Okay.
into this big like art piece, and then we take a picture of it and share it. And that always it always made people, say things, and they'd see Starbucks cups with names on them and be like, Steve needs to pick up his litter, or he needs to not throw
Yeah.
that in the trash can and instead put it in the recycling. So I think it was kind of this, it was almost this fun game, I think, which is
Yeah.
kind of what I'm doing with my art too. A lot of the times it's like this I spy kind of game. And you could really point out, like, okay, whoa, my, whatever this object is can go in another place where it can be repurposed or reused or recycled instead of just straight to the landfill. And it was, I think that was probably the most, generated the most talk and communication
Yeah.
about recycling and what you can do.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost like a guerrilla tactic of marketing. So your creative marketing classes really came in handy with what you were doing because it
Yeah.
makes people do a double take. If they see art made out of trash, it's like, wait, what? Like, hold on a second. I thought that was just a normal mosaic, but it's actually made out of like bottle caps. Like that's really interesting. It just
Yeah.
like makes people think. Um,
Yeah.
I'd love to know too, like, do you remember the first piece of art you made with trash and what was it made of?
Oh my gosh.
I know that might be.
Let's see. The first piece of art. I mean, I would count, oh gosh, I don't know. If you're counting when I'm younger, I honestly just don't even know. I remember collecting just all kinds of things off the ground when I was younger and making little like art pieces. Um, but I think the first memory I have of like actually sitting down and being like, let's get serious about this and actually
Yeah,
making, something I was going to share with the world
intentionally.
was, yeah, intentionally was when I had started my Instagram, and I really had no intention of making, the Trashy Collection anything. It was kind of just like,
Okay.
let's see what happens and let's see if I can inspire people or get people talking. And I had went to a job that took me out to Portugal, and the job ended really badly and I was kind of just stranded in Europe, which sounds
Mhm.
really wonderful, but I was also like broke.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to
Stressful.
do next kind of thing. Yeah, stressful. And so I started just picking trash up on the beaches in Portugal. And then I went back to my Airbnb and made this really beautiful little rainbow piece with, I remember in Portugal, a lot of the times you'd find plastic clothes pin clips because
Oh,
people
okay.
hang up their clothes, outside all the time there to dry. And I found so many of them and I had made a piece with that. And that was like one of the first pieces I shared. So I
Mhm.
think that was kind of, the
Okay.
first serious piece. Hmm.
Okay. So then going to now, because you live in Michigan and you're on the shores of the Great Lakes, like what are the most common things that you find? If you had to give me like
Oh
five
yeah.
trash that you find, like you're like, I'll find them every single time. What are they?
Yep. Plastic dental floss picks. I swear you find them anywhere. Yeah. I find them in the parking lots all the time even, but I do find those. I don't think I've ever been to the beach and not picked one up.
Okay.
Um, Plastic lighters. I find those all the time. A lot of them are, broken and don't have the fluid in them anymore. And you can tell have just been thrashed through the
Mhm.
waves so much. Plastic cotton swab, the part that's just, in between the
Yeah.
swabs.
Okay.
Find those all the time. So that's three. What else? Bottle caps. I mean, when can you when can you go outside with not seeing a bottle cap? And As much as people say it all the time, I'll never leave the beach without a plastic water bottle. I feel like that's, everybody says that again and again, but people are still using them, on a daily basis, and
Yeah.
you just always find them.
Yeah, I wish that there was a way just to push even harder for, manufacturing to turn to like cardboard boxes or like literally anything else for packaging water than plastic bottles because I mean, we find them everywhere. It is
Hmm.
crazy. And I mean, they last forever, forever, forever.
Forever. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder if people, even listening now, like if this is their first time hearing about like, how long things take to break down. I mean, plastic
Hmm.
takes so, 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 so long. And even when you think it's really breaking down, it's just breaking down into smaller pieces and smaller pieces and smaller pieces. It's never
Yeah.
actually like gone. And then that seeps into, everything, waterways, like soil, it goes into everything. I mean, we consume it. There are some documentaries that they're very hard to watch, but they show, even like, birds that live next to water that consume microplastics and that their stomachs are just like full of this plastic. Like it is a true issue.
Hmm.
And plastic is the leader of that. It's so hard.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It totally is everywhere. I mean, going back to what you just said about the birds,
Mhm.
I decided to have my own little science experiment, and there's always dead birds on the shore. So my dad, helped me bring one back home, and we actually cut its stomach open. I would not recommend unless, you have someone who knows what they're doing. My dad is, a hunter and has experience in that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it was really interesting. Like there were plastic bits, and we were both just like, how did he even eat this? And how it's just crazy because then you're like, maybe all of these dead birds, not that there's like millions or anything, but you see them like on a pretty daily, experience out at the beach here. And it makes you wonder if that's why they're dying, because of course we
Yeah.
hear that in all these documentaries and things. And yeah, it's just really sad when you think about that whole connection of
Yes.
everything.
Yeah, and it just goes back to like, everything really is connected. And I was reading there's someone I follow, he's nerdy about nature. If you haven't followed him, you should. But he made a post that was about like trash isn't a natural thing. And so the entire thing that he talks about is how like, litter is a human made problem. Like we're not going like litter isn't it doesn't exist in nature. That's not a thing that wildlife has to deal with until humans were introduced to that environment.
Hmm.
And it just really makes you think about like, okay, we see, these animals that are consuming plastic and stuff, and it's just like, oh, how did it get there? And it's like, well, it's us. Like we did that because without human existence, like none of this stuff would even be here. So even if, personally, you or I or anyone else isn't, littering on the beach, like we're still consuming products that are wrapped in plastic or purchased in certain materials that are toxic and are really awful for the environment just because that's the way that, things are packaged. And, we can only do so much to prevent our or lower our footprints, but it is a huge issue and like we are all a part of it. And there was I can't even remember the name of it now, but there was a documentary that I watched where there was a guy, I think it was maybe a team, but they went out to a beach and they like cut open, I don't even remember how many, but they were dead birds.
Hmm.
And every single one of those birds had like their stomachs were full of plastics or things that like they shouldn't have been eating because they thought it was food because it was out on these beaches. Or they ate a
Hmm.
fish and the fish had stuff in their stomach. So it's just this crazy, circle of, we create the problem and then, everything else is
Hmm.
impacted. And then, it's like, well, what can we do to create change? And I love that
Yeah.
you're using, your platform to basically raise awareness on these issues, but then, give people ideas of like sustainability swaps and all different kinds of things. So I feel like this is a perfect transition into just sharing about like the creation of the Trashy Collection. Like when was that? Like what brought the idea to you of just like naming it that and everything?
Yeah. I don't even know how many years ago it was now. It's been at least like a handful of years, like five or more.
Okay.
And really it just became because I had, yeah, like had this job that didn't work out. And I was like, I need to just do something with all of this. Because I had been taking pictures of trash just because I think that was just an expression of art I had, for myself, really, was to look back at those things. And then I just created this Instagram and started sharing. And it was, pictures I had taken out west on a road trip, with the, yeah, beautiful scenery in the
Yeah.
backgrounds, or at the different little road stops when you're entering a new state, and how much trash there was by those little signs.
Yeah.
And I was like, are people just throwing their trash out when they stop here to take a picture? Like, it made me so mad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just started sharing it and started sharing facts about, I would Google like, things about like how many straws are out in the world or something, and
Oh yeah.
just see, what the research is like. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I started actually collecting everything. So that was when I was in Portugal and was kind of just exploring Europe and everything. And I started collecting trash. And I actually had filled up my entire book bag. And then thankfully my parents like came to see me there, because they took all of my clothes and everything back with me. And then I flew back with a literal backpack full of trash. I
Wow.
was like, I'm going to do something with this trash. I'm going to make a piece of art. I'm going to share what I found and hopefully inspire other people. So that was really the beginning. And then I was like, well, it is a trashy collection. So I guess I'll just call it what it is.
I love that.
Yeah.
So from the creation of the Trashy Collection, like I know you said originally you didn't really have like any intentions with it, but now that it's been growing, like what has the mission become? Like what do you envision for it?
Yeah, I mean, I have been having a lot of fun doing like larger scale installations and things. I'm working on a secret one right now, but it's going to be my biggest piece to date, and it's going to be a fun, it'll just be fun. So I'm really excited about that. I can't share a ton about it right now, but yeah, I'm really excited about the opportunity to do more big scale pieces, maybe, an art gallery one day, because I haven't done that yet, and just kind of dip my toes in some things that can reach more people outside of the internet. I think, making that local impact still, and sharing, especially with people here in Michigan, because when you're in the Midwest, I feel like I've just experienced it's so different from being out west or somewhere that has this more forward thinking mindset of, environmental initiatives in general. So I think reaching people here is really important to me, and bigger scale projects, working with more brands. Like, I still have a dream of having, a whole gallery just filled with plastic one day, so people can, come and take pictures and yeah, share with other people what they see in each piece, because you could just look at them, I feel like, for, hours, and be like, ooh, I see that's actually this, or, play that I Spy game. And yeah, I have so many ideas. I could talk about them forever, but I think just making a bigger impact with it all, and having that educational component's really, really important.
Yeah, I think that you're definitely onto something with that too, of just like bringing something because, as humans, we are visual people. Like aesthetically, we're drawn to things if we can see photos of it or like see it in person. And it's like this, we're just drawn to like art and things like that. So to have like these big pieces where, you're looking at it and it's like really beautiful, but it's made from trash, and then having information about like, hey, there's this many bottle caps on the beaches, or it takes this long for this thing to break down. It's like I feel like that has to resonate with people. Like if you're physically looking at it or you're seeing it and you can touch it and understand the magnitude of it, then like that has to instill something, like some thought of, oh wait, like maybe I should be considering this more. Maybe I should Google myself and just like learn more about my surroundings and like how much is in my area, or go on a walk and just like look at the ground, because honestly, like you said, like it's not just at the beaches, but it's everywhere. And I'll take a walk around this block and I'll be able to pick up almost a full bag of trash like every single day. I could walk the same exact route, and it's just crazy how much is out there. And just, yeah, the lack of education around where that ends up if people don't pick it up or if it's not disposed of properly, and the impact that that really has. And I'm curious too of like what you've learned, or like what stands out to you the most since you've started to like pick up litter and create this kind of art. Like what has that taught you? Like what does that bring up for you over the past 5+ years of doing this? Like what education do you feel like you've really learned?
Yeah, I think it's just an educational experience in itself, going on a cleanup, because you realize what you're finding is a lot of the times in your home as well. You know, like if you find a chip bag outside, you probably have a chip bag at home. Let's be real. Most people do. So I think it's for me making that connection with the things that I'm finding on the beach and finding things that still surprise me. Every time I go, it's like I'll find something new and then be like, like I wonder how we could make this more sustainable, or I wonder how we can eliminate this overall, and really asking those questions. So it's made me more sustainable just going on cleanups and, picking things up. And then the microplastic aspect is always something I'm really interested in too, because I do have the belief that there can be plastic can be used for good, right? Like we see it in medical devices and things that are really, forwarding the earth in a way that's good. But there's also these things that are just so everyday that are breaking up. And I think it's that aspect has really made me want to go into more of like this research role too, and try to make it like even like what's the next step. There's this art piece, education piece, but what's like another thing we can do. So I'm kind of going on a tangent, I guess, here, but who knows where that'll go. I don't even remember your question, to be honest, Bree.
Yeah, I would love to know too, just like your thoughts on it kind of goes along with what you were just saying about, the next step of like, how do you either completely remove this or, make it more user friendly or more earth friendly? Like, do we really have to remove plastic entirely, or could it be used for a better way after, I know that this could be wrong. I know plastics can get recycled and used like only a certain amount of times. Do you know how many times that is? I think it's like 5 or 6, right? Like
Yeah, and I think it's so it's
plastic
different for
bottle
every.
could get broken down and,
Mhm.
like, made into another bottle, like, a couple times or something like that. But then after that, it's like it's like the particles or something don't break down the same way or something, and you can't utilize it the same. I could be wrong. I feel like I've read this. Um,
Yeah. No, I
but
think you are right, and I
yeah,
think, it's different for every type of plastic, every
yeah,
color of plastic, and so, yeah, like, there is a limited lifetime really to it until you reach that point where things are just leaching, toxic compounds or however it works. But yeah, so that's also really interesting because I think we've been, told this lie that you can use a plastic water bottle over and over again, or, it's going to be recycled and it's going to be forever. So why do we really care? you know?
yeah,
And it's like, well, no, that's not true actually. And it's going to have to die at some point and be put to the
yeah.
landfill. So yeah, that's super interesting to think about.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, what are the ways to, like, either extend that life cycle or change the way that they're produced so that that life cycle can, like, continue on in some way? I feel like there's a lot of questions of, like, how do we make these things more, yeah, sustainable, more environmentally friendly, and lowering the impact of these kinds of materials if we're going to continue to use them. Yeah, it's a very complex and interesting like space to be in because I feel like there's so much that's still so unknown and like there are so many organizations and people and brands and innovators that are like making moves to do these amazing things, but there's still so much that hasn't been done yet. And I guess like along that vein, I'm curious of like some of your top sustainability swap suggestions for people. So I know on your website you kind of list off like a link of like your favorite swaps. So I'd love for you to share some with the listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I am also working on, so my website is being worked on right now, which is super exciting. So I'm going to have like a whole collection of kind of like the top things I find on the beach and what their alternatives are. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah, I think some of my top swaps that I'm using on a daily basis are plastic-free toothpaste. I'm obsessed with it. I use the brand Huppy, and I have never found one that foams the way that theirs do. And it's like, real toothpaste, which is really awesome
Are
because
they is it chewable?
yeah, they're little chewable tabs. Yep. And I do find plastic tubes on the beach, which still is so weird to me. A lot of the times it's the travel size ones.
Yeah,
So I use that every day along with my bamboo toothbrush. And I have one where the bristles are made of castor beans. So they're actually biodegradable as well. So that's
amazing.
a really awesome one. And I love those just because it's something you're using every day. And I think people go through toothpaste a lot and toothbrushes if you're using it on the recommended like basis. So those are awesome. I also love stasher bags, the little like silicone baggies. Oh, those are just the best. Like if you're traveling and going through the airport, forget the Ziploc bag. You can just use that. You can use it for snacks. I'll go to the beach and bring snacks in it. And then by the time I leave the beach, it has trash in it.
Oh yeah,
So
amazing.
yeah, it's so nice. I love them. Obviously my water bottle, I use a hydro flask because it keeps everything cold. I love that. And you can put stickers on it if you want. I've had like
Yep.
some of your guys' stickers too. What else? I use instead of because I find those plastic cotton swabs all the time, like I said, and those drive me nuts. So I've used the bamboo ones before because I think if you prefer the cottony ends on them, then like those are better than the plastic, obviously. But I
Yeah.
also have the reusable one. I can't think of what the brand is, but there is a reusable one that you can use.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, and I would love to
Yeah.
if you would be open to sharing a couple of like the things you find the most on the beach and then like your favorite alternatives or if those kind of go along with what you just shared.
Yeah, a couple of those do. I think the other one, so plastic lighters. I actually found a lighter online that is rechargeable, so I use that. Again, I don't know the brand, but I can always share it with you after. It's really nice though. It's like kind of aesthetically, cute to put in your house too, and you can just charge it. It's lasted me a while now, and it hasn't, died or anything. And I know you could also get refillable lighter fluid if you have candles at home or you're, using
Yeah.
that for any reason because that kills me. That's like one of the worst ones when you find those plastic lighters because I
Yeah.
think people just buy them, at the gas station so like frivolously. It's like, oh, $1, I'll get this and
Yeah.
light that up. What else? Bottle caps. I think that ties in with obviously the plastic or water
Plastic.
bottles, reusable ones.
Hmm.
Um, and anytime, I mean, this is different from municipality to municipality and wherever you are in the world, but if you can recycle bottles with the cap on them, like that is key because those get so lost in the recycling, they don't even end up there.
Yeah, because this is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't recycle a cap on its own, can you? It's like too small.
No, you can't. Yeah, it's too small. I always say anything smaller than a tennis ball never actually makes it to the recycling facility. So,
So
yeah,
that's great feedback for like anybody who's listening that may, just be kind of getting into their, environmental kind of processes of being more involved, to know that because whenever I first started
totally.
doing research around recycling and just, litter and stuff, and I saw that, I was shocked. So I was like, wow, I find a ton of bottle caps and like now they can't go anywhere to be, anything
Yeah,
creative, which is like really eye-opening and also disappointing because you find
totally.
but then there's a part of me that's like man if I find a bottle that just doesn't have a cap on it I'm just gonna come on like
Yeah, put it on there. And then I
yeah
also know, like, really, if you have someone that you can just email to, like at your local city recycling center or something, there should be some kind of contact there. But sometimes you can even do the thing where if you have like an empty bottle and you just put a bunch of them in there, they'll still
oh,
accept it and recycle it.
okay.
So, I mean, that totally depends where you're at. Not everyone will do that, but it's worth asking.
Yeah,
Why
worth
not
asking
ask?
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great.
Hmm.
I would also love to circle back to I know you mentioned so I'm also from the Midwest originally. I'm from
Oh,
Illinois,
cool.
Southern
Oh,
Illinois.
nice.
And I can relate very much to the sentiment around like it's just not as progressive as like being out on the West Coast. There are so many people that are like very plugged in and very passionate about taking care of the planet and doing all of these initiatives. And you can just kind of throw a rock and find a nonprofit or an organization that's like doing something that you would want to get involved in. And I feel like it's just a little more challenging to find that in the Midwest. Not to say that it doesn't exist, and like to all the organizations that are doing that work, it's amazing. But I feel like it's more of an effort to like seek those things out than maybe it is out here. And I definitely can relate to just like, yeah, like a slower mentality around it. Like whenever I have conversations, even with family members, it's just like, oh, what is your job? You pick up trash for a living. Like you're getting paid to pick up trash. Like you're a glorified trash man. I was like, yeah, pretty much I am. But it's amazing. And I want more people to like I want it to be more normalized, that it's like a cool thing to do to like take care of the planet,
Mhm.
um, whatever that looks like. And I'm curious of, when you say like, yeah, I really in Michigan, I want this connection. I want people to start to like care more and to kind of progress those conversations. Like, what does that look like for you there?
Yeah, that's so interesting because when I actually started my Instagram, which was the Trashy Collection, I kept it a secret for probably like 2 years because I was honestly like I felt like I was in this bubble, especially yeah, here in Michigan, where not anybody could really relate to what I was doing. I felt like I only had a connection with people on Instagram and they were in spaces that weren't here. So
Yeah.
it really took me a while to start that conversation, honestly, and to get comfortable with like sharing, yeah, I'm picking up pieces of trash, I'm making art with it. Like so many
Yeah.
people couldn't even wrap their heads around that. They were just like, wait, you're doing what? Where's the trash coming from? And what? Like they didn't get it, you know? So I think that's just interesting in itself to like be met with that, well, what do you mean? You know, it's kind of like it's a weird response. So I think just, you know, kind of starting these conversations like as tangible as you can get too, like taking someone on a walk with you and letting them see the trash for themselves. Like I still to this day take friends that have never been to the beaches here to see the trash that's washing up
Yeah.
and they're like, "Wow, this is really crazy. Like you're doing something so awesome. Like how did I not know about this? I've lived here my whole life and never seen it." And
Yeah.
so that's just so mind-boggling to me because obviously I'm like deep in it and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
know all these facts and can spout it off and whatnot. But I also think that people have this mentality of don't tell me I don't want to know. That's too much to handle. I don't want to know. It's the same kind of conversation if you have people who I've been vegan for over like
Yeah.
9 years now. And people
Yep.
just, if I even like drop a stat or something, which I do not do, I'm not like that. But if I did, people are like, oh my God, don't tell me that. I don't want to know. I'm going to sit here and eat my steak. And it's like,
Yeah.
fine, cool, do you. But, it's the same thing with trash. People just don't want to know about it. They don't want to hear
Yeah.
about it, which is so interesting though, because we live on this beautiful, beautiful earth with all of these amazing places, and we're literally seeing in front of our eyes the, breaking down of everything and
Yep.
things, which is because of climate change and all these other things too. But I mean, a lot of it is the trash, and plastic and trash haven't even been around that long. Like,
Yeah.
we, our grandparents have seen it. So I also think we're in this incredible space of innovation, like you said, and being able to learn from our elders of things that they did that they don't even realize is sustainable, but it is. And
Yeah.
so I think I just went off on another tangent, but
Well, I think
that's, yeah.
that's a great point though. Like I feel like when you're talking about, yeah, that like I don't want to talk about it, personality or like that mindset of like comfort. Like I would just want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to think about anything. Like it doesn't directly impact me. So I'm just not gonna to worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. And I think we're coming to that point where it's like that's not gonna be the case soon. Like you're not gonna be able
Absolutely.
to sit by and pretend like it's like we're all going to be affected in one way or another. I think relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We've just been seeing, especially in regards to like water, but here in Utah, like there's a lot of news coming out about the shrinking of the Salt Lake and like the poisonous like gases and stuff that can be released from the ground after the water
Mm-hmm.
is drying up, and like this huge it's a huge issue, and it's happening all over the Southwest. Like our waterways are shriveling dramatically, and that's like a
Mm-hmm.
huge human sorry, that's a huge human like created issue, and
Totally.
at some point we're not going to be able to just be like, I don't, that doesn't pertain to me and I don't want to pay attention, and it's like, oh wait, this is going to touch all of us, and if not us then it's like our kids, the grandkids, like
Mm-hmm.
generations. And it's something that we're going to have to talk about and like get uncomfortable with, because it is uncomfortable and it's not pretty, and those conversations are not pleasant to have to sit and think about, like, how much trash do I produce in a day. I
Totally.
just shared a statistic with the wild keepers that every person in the US averages creating 4 pounds of trash a day. So if you think about
Mm-hmm.
that, there are over a billion people
Oh,
just in the
yeah.
US. 4 pounds of trash a day. Like, where does that all go? Not all of it's making it
Yeah,
into the landfill, and
totally.
not all of it's being recycled. So it's just stuff like that that, yeah, it's like when I read those statistics, I'm like, oh, this makes me feel awful, but I'm glad I know it because it's going to
Hmm.
make me try to be more sustainable and like a better advocate and a better caretaker for the planet because now I know these things. Um,
Absolutely.
and just making like these little shifts, like all of those sustainable swaps that you just shared are things that don't cost very much and they can last a long time, and it lessens the impact of each person by like so much. Like having a reusable water bottle, oh my gosh, like the amount of
Oh.
water bottles that you're taking out of, just space in general, even in landfills, by using a reusable one is like staggering. um
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel like those conversations, even when they're uncomfortable, are so important. And
Hmm.
I've faced that like with family members and stuff back in, the Midwest too, or like even on my Facebook, and people are just like, "What in the hell do you do for your job? Like this is ridiculous. Like why do
Yeah,
you even do this?" And it's like it's so important. Um
it is. It's
and
so important.
yeah, have that visibility too, because like you said, so many people are just like, wait, what? Like this is actually a thing. And it's like there needs to be someone talking about it to spaces that maybe it's not so common to have those conversations, because I'm very lucky to be in a circle that like they are aware and they do try to be very conscious, but that's not the reality of like most of the people that are in
Hmm.
in the world, in the US, are not as conscious yet. Like I have hope that like the yet that they will be, but it's like not there yet. But
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, we're seeing, I think, like we had said, a couple times already, but we're seeing that innovation and it keeps
yeah,
increasing. And you can only hope that these big brands that have, the biggest part of the market and whatever, product they are, continue to really move into that sustainability space. Because at the end of the day, like we are a very capitalistic space in the world and people are always buying things and it's convenience and all of these things, and I really don't think that's going to shift a whole lot. I mean, in all honesty, that's a lot of people to try to shift all of that. So I
yeah,
think the best we can do is just keep progressing towards that progress not perfection mindset.
yeah,
And if you can buy those things that you're using on a daily basis that are instead the swap that will last you, forever. Like some of these swaps that I have for single use items, I literally think will last me my entire life.
yeah,
And that's really what I think we should be striving for when we buy things. And really just thinking though, like if you have to buy a single use thing, is there maybe a more friendly option? Like if you're having a barbecue and you really need those plastic forks for whatever reason and you can't use your silverware, don't have enough, then maybe there's bamboo ones or something
yeah,
different that will break down better. Because if we keep driving that as consumers and being like, no, I don't want that plastic, then
yeah,
that's like really what's going to start happening. And then, you could take it that further level and get involved with politics, and
yeah.
just making our voices heard more is so important.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, going along to the whole conversation around like our money is our vote, and it is the driver of so many things. So like a brand may not listen to feedback like through, a DM or an email or something, but if people stop purchasing something
Mm-hmm.
because they're not happy with the way that it's produced, or they're like, yeah, we're just going to stop buying plastic products, or we're going to stop buying paper plates, and we're going to start using more sustainable options, then that company is going to have to rethink the products that they're offering because they don't want to lose their customer base. And
Yeah.
so yeah, being able to utilize and like kind of create change with our dollar is so important. And I think a big part of the sustainability space and the eco-friendly space too is just like accessibility and like getting products to the point where they're more accessible to more people. Because obviously, at least for me, like when I look at some of the swaps, it's like it is a bigger uptick in price because it's made with organic products and it's made from natural materials, and they are meant to last longer. But then that lessens the demographic of people that can actually purchase it, and a lot of people that are struggling and buying like really kind of like low end made things are people that just like literally couldn't afford to buy like you know deodorant that's made from zinc and it's in a cardboard container. Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I look at like the bar shampoo and stuff like that, it's like, man, it's like $15 and it's really good for the environment, but if you are on food stamps, you're not going to be able to buy that. So I think there's a big part of it too, where it's like, I hope that we can get to a point where these products are more of a norm, so then they can be more attainable and like more accessible to everybody too, because I think that I think if they were more accessible, more people would purchase them too. But sometimes it's like it's just not in a reality for people to be able to afford to buy them because they're worrying about, keeping the lights on and stuff too. So
Totally.
I hope there's a move in that direction too in the future, because I think that the more, like, even if you look at McDonald's offering like an impossible meat over
Mm-hmm.
a burger patty, it's like, well, a lot of people go to McDonald's because it's cheap and it's an ability to put food in people's bellies. And having that option is like one less person potentially eating meat. So if
Mm-hmm.
we get to that space with a lot more things, I think that we would see a great shift too. So I hope we can get there.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I went to the dollar store randomly when I was
Mhm.
traveling because it was like the only place that I saw along the way, and it was a really small community. And they actually did have like an alternative to all the plasticware and everything. And I was like, amazing. It's the
Yeah.
same price, the dollar store. Everybody, can go there and grab cheap whatever. But just to see that alternative in a space like that is so awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Like it's a privilege to get a lot of those sustainable swaps, and it's just going to be amazing when there's more accessibility to them around the
Yes.
world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you'll love this too, just because of what you advocate for. But I recently followed a girl. She lives in New York. She's called the Trash Walker. Have you seen her account?
Yes. Oh my gosh, amazing.
So I feel like it's in the same
Yep.
vein of just like educating about food waste and food like
Yes.
accessibility and how much food grocery stores and restaurants and schools throw away. It has
Uh,
been so eye-opening. Like, I've been watching her stuff and I'm like, there no way. No way. It's
mind-boggling.
shocking. So if anyone's listening, obviously you need to like, you should just follow everybody that we're talking about, because it's just like really great education, and it's on Instagram, so it's very consumable, but all visually very like shocking, because she'll open these bags from a school and it's like tons of milk, tons of yogurt,
Hmm.
tons of whatever, and they haven't even hit their, you know, sell by
Yep.
dates and stuff, and it's just like, wow, we're throwing away so much stuff that so
Oh.
many people could use, or it could stay on the shelves. And yeah, it's just very
Hmm.
interesting. There are so many ways that we could be a lot more environmentally conscious and caring as, organizations, as businesses, as
Hmm.
governmental agencies. Like, there's just so much.
Yep.
And I feel like what you're doing, even just bringing up those conversations and raising awareness and, yeah, starting those conversations, like we talked about, like, getting people to even think, even if it makes them uncomfortable, is so important, because
Hmm.
um, we need to get into a space where we're aware of these things. Like, when we're just walking around and like people are like, "Oh, that doesn't belong there. I'm just going to pick it up and throw it in the trash can so that it'll go somewhere else and not be on the ground or in the water
Hmm.
or, anywhere." I think it's so important. So I hope that we get to see all of your art in your own gallery. That's
I
the
would
dream.
love that.
We're gonna put that out
That's
there
the dream.
the universe right now. You're going to have your own your own gallery, and I will come there and I will
Ah,
support it.
amazing.
Yes. I First off, we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and yeah, like, sharing your art with everyone, and putting yourself out there to be an advocate, because I know it's not always easy to be that person to be like, yeah, this is what I do. I'm going to pick up trash and take care of nature. And I think that there needs to be more people just out there being like, yeah, so what? Like, it's maybe like gross in society, but like, this is a thing that we need to be doing. And it's really not that gross. And it's really cool to take care of the planet and
Hmm.
be that person, be that leader in the community to do something when you see it, instead of just being like, no, I don't like that. That bothers me, but I'm just going
Absolutely.
to so I have a few wrap up questions for you.
Hmm.
The first is, where can people find you online?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at the Trashy Collection, and I will have a website soon, so you can find me there. It'll be thetrashycollection.com. You can also find that on Instagram too, linked there, but that's mainly where I am. So you can find me there, come say hi, show me the trash you're collecting, all of that.
Yes. Yeah, if you want to do something fun, you can tag her when you go out and do your cleanups because they always tag Keep Nature Wild, but you could tag her as well. I'm sure she would be very excited and thrilled to see all of the
Yes.
random and unique things that we find.
Hmm.
And then my last question for you is what does keeping nature wild mean to you?
Keeping nature wild, what does it mean to me? It means being able to go outside and see no trash. That's the ideal situation, I think, is to show up at this beautiful place, whether that's your front yard, your backyard, around the block of your local park, amazing national park, anywhere, and just seeing no trash. That is keeping nature wild to me.
I love that. I feel like it aligns very well with my view on it too. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful spaces that we're able to, yeah, like just look at and feel joy instead of being like, oh,
Hmm.
like I wish this was different. I wish this wasn't
Yes.
so bombarded with things that don't belong here. And yeah, just being able to find peace when you walk outside instead of being bothered or disgusted by something.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hannah, thank you so much for sharing an hour of your time with me. Everyone, please go follow Hannah, follow along with her journey of creating amazing art, and hopefully seeing her work with more brands, getting more visibility, and obviously doing so much good in your area, but beyond too. So, thank you so much. And this will not be the last time that we interact and talk. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. I love talking with you,
Yes,
Bree. And yeah, I mean, if I can just say one last thing, it's literally you can make an impact anywhere you are in the world. It
yes,
doesn't matter where you are. So yeah, get
it's
out
true.
there and keep nature wild.
Yes, yeah, that was a perfect ending. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of
Thank
your day.
you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.